of course, everybody knows that Canada is the land of dreams, and we wanted to actually feel and experience what is this dream all about. We're introduced to the an agency who brought us here, and apparently we've been hired to work at Denny's here in Vancouver. Me and my husband actually are working on the same company, but on different units all the time, because it's part of their standard. You can't work with your family members. So we started working. It was fun at first, and then until we started seeing some problems. But we, as foreign workers in this country, and we're not really, we don't have much right as the resident or the citizens here. Like, we have quite limited rights here. So we actually don't know those rights that we have. Although we know a little bit, but not that much as I know right now. So we just kept quiet. We're asking questions to the company, but still, like, it's kind of a little bit hard because they're giving us hard time at work. When you complain, it's kind of different. So it's better for you to just shut, and just work until you do your best to meet what's your company needs, because that's what you came for.
So the claim alleges that Denny's didn't provide the promised 40 hours per week. The temporary foreign workers, they relied on this aspect of the contract to calculate how much money they would earn when they were in Canada, and that often justified the amount they were borrowing from family or mortgaging their farm or land in order to come here. Denny's has probably brought in approximately 250 temporary foreign workers, 50 to 60 of those into British Columbia, the others in Alberta and Saskatchewan. And a temporary foreign worker who came to Canada, his name was Alfredo Salez, and he paid Denny's agent $6,000 US, signed an employment contract with Denny's to work in Vancouver, and paid for his own flight to come here. Now, a few months before the end of his contract, Alfredo sent an email to Deborah Gagnon, who is the Vice President of Operations of Denny's. And he requested in this email the payment of his overtime, reimbursement for his $6,000 fee to work for Denny's, and reimbursement for his airfare to Canada and back to the Philippines. And Ms. Gagnon wrote back to Alfredo, "Please be assured that you do not need to be fearful of your employment with us as a result of bringing your concerns to my attention. Our open communication policy allows for our employees to use the chain of command to resolve any concerns without fear of reprisal for doing so. Please contact me so that we may set up a time for next week where we can meet and review your situation." And so shortly after this, Alfredo did meet with Deborah Gagnon, and she fired him.
As a community-based organization of Filipino migrants and immigrants, we recognize that an important aspect of this class action lawsuit is that, in essence, it's about the temporary foreign workers themselves fighting back. It's about them gaining the strength to stand up and finding their voice to speak out. So foremost, we'd like to thank Herminia and her colleagues for their courage to launch this class action lawsuit, and for the courage to give voice to the thousands of other TFWs across the country that are likely remaining voiceless today. Clearly, we can't depend on the Canadian government. We can't depend on the Philippine government. It's up to the TFWs, the people, the unions, and the advocates to work together to forward their rights and welfare. So there's another quote that's often repeated, and it says, "For too long others have spoken in our behalf. It's time for us to speak for ourselves." And I think this is what Herminia and her colleagues at Denny's are demonstrating very well to all of us here today. So thank you again to the Denny's workers for giving voice to the many more TFWs across Canada and around the world that may be toiling and suffering in silence. In closing, I'd like to end with a quote that sort of encapsulates the vision of Migrante. And it's, "We dream of a society where families are no longer torn apart because of the need to survive."
UFCW Canada comes into contact with more migrant workers than any organization in the country, bar none, including the federal government. And what we've seen is that the common themes of the program, and we see this from St. John's to Victoria and everywhere in between, is that you have fraud perpetrated by labor brokers and some employers. Substandard wages and working conditions are typical. Jobs disappear without notice. Excessive rents are charged by employers for substandard housing. There's a lack of enforcement of basic rights and other protections at all levels. This is not just a problem of the federal government. This is a problem of the provinces. These are problems of municipalities. And I wish that I was only embellishing. I wish I was exaggerating. But the state, particularly of the state of non-union migrant workers in Canada, is one of precariousness and absolute crisis. We at UFCW Canada are firm believers that if we are going to affect change, we can only do it together. We must do it together as community activists, academics, unions. Alone, we won't be able to move that pendulum, but together, we would suggest that anything is possible.